With merely hours left before the midnight deadline for NC State football players to enter the transfer portal, the floodgates have opened for the Wolfpack Secondary.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy Thursday to all, although the majority of you will probably hear this on Friday. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. We're actually recording this on Thursday evening due to the fact that some massive news just dropped for the NC State football team. Not one, not two, but three key defenders in the Wolfpack secondary have elected to enter the transfer portal merely hours before that window has closed. They are Brandon Ceesay, Devon Boykin, and Tamarcus Cooley, surprisingly enough. Where do we start here? I'm not quite sure. I guess we'll go chronologically, so we'll start with Brandon Ceesay. Obviously, Brandon Ceesay was the first of the three to announce that he was going to enter the portal. Did not play in the bowl game due to undisclosed reasons. I guess we assumed it was injury, but perhaps it wasn't. Ceesay was one of the best defenders on this team this year. Now, he also struggled at times staying on the field due to a multitude of injuries, but when he was on it, I believe he was the highest graded corner on the entire team. He even outplayed Aiden White for what it's worth. For him to jump in the portal now, merely weeks after re-signing with Wolves and recruiting his own brother to commit to NC State, that's Cedric Ceesay, this is a move that's going to shock a lot of people, but I think the more you weigh in all of the factors, such as Tony Gibson moving on, and the season itself was disappointing, didn't play in the bowl game, and we lose the bowl game in embarrassing fashion, I'm not exactly shocked to see a guy like Brandon Ceesay enter the portal, but certainly doesn't sting any less.
You know, I'm going to say the same thing that I said when Aiden White entered the portal. I'm not sure if all of these guys are actually gone. And
that's fair. That's fair.
I'm just going to leave that where it is. I'm not sure all of these guys are actually gone. But with that being said, our secondary just became our tertiary. For those of you who don't get that joke.
That's a bar, actually. That's a bar. Please, everyone appreciate how good that is.
No, but seriously, it's a moment where a position group that we looked at as a potential position, not even a potential, a position that was going to be our strong suit. Yeah. We were looking at next year like, hey, linebacker play was abysmal. Defensive line play, even from the guys we saw, was good. It wasn't terrible, wasn't great. You know, I believe Cleveland on his own has been phenomenal. But, you need the other guys to, kind of step into bigger roles than they may have traditionally occupied. You looked at this secondary and said, oh, man, they're going to be damn good. And Brandon Ceesay was supposed to spearhead that effort. He was supposed to be your alpha. He was supposed to be your leader. He was supposed to be the guy that set the tone for that defensive back pack. And it just turns out that his bags are packed. It's a really unfortunate situation because, again, he's phenomenal. And I've said this literally since before he signed. And if y'all don't believe me, go back and do the knowledge. Grayson and I said this when we talked about it. I said, I don't know how Clemson and South Carolina let him get out the state. I don't know how, because that's one of the baddest defensive backs that I've seen in some time. And he's going out there and proved it. And so, you can never have enough proven commodities. I will say the only thing that I would say would make this hurt a little less potentially is the fact that even with a proven commodity, there's still the aspect of how do you react to a new playbook, which everybody on this roster is going to have to do defensively, because the 3-4 hybrid is very different than Tony Gibson's base 3-3-5. So I guess that's one of the silver linings of he was going to have to adjust to a new playbook anyway. But for a corner, it's pretty ball is ball for certain positions. And corner is one of those where it's like, Doesn't matter if it's a 3-3-5, if it's a 4-3, if it's a 3-4, if it's a 4-2-5. Hey, you go with that man as you go with that man everywhere. So,
it wasn't just Kenton that was singing the praises of Brandon Ceesay, but it was also former defensive coordinator Tony Gibson. And I remember when they do their ACC road trip every year, like right in the middle of August, when the ACC network crew goes around to each school to give like a basic preview on what the coaches feel and some of the player interviews. I remember Coach Gibson raving about Ceesay and saying that he very well could end up as one of the best defensive backs to ever play at NC State. And then, of course, grading out as the best corner on the team, he might have been well on his way. But yeah, I mean, you also factor in bringing in a new defensive coordinator. One could also assume that Ceesay and Gibson were very tight. And my initial inclination when Gibson left, you might lose a guy like Ceesay, but him re-signing, perhaps I was naive to think that that was set in stone. It's a tough loss. The portal definitely giveth and also taketh away, but this is a pretty big taketh for NC State to have to deal with. And now we'll move into the other two because they both kind of released at the same time. Devon Boykin and Tamarcus Cooley are also entering the portal for NC State. Devon Boykin obviously did not play this season. He tore his ACL in the Pop-Tart Bowl practice last offseason. Ended up never seeing him, but now he chooses to enter the portal anyway. And Tamarcus Cooley came on really, really strong in the middle portion of this year. In my opinion, I thought he was the best overall defender from what I saw the rest of the season on. He had multiple picks in the bowl game. I think he had 1 or 2 against Georgia Tech as well. He had that fumble where he ripped it away from Duke and nearly housed that one. Cooley is a rising talent, and I think that really stings when you're looking at 2025 because what he showed you this season projects super easily into any defensive scheme, whether it's new or old. To lose him now, seemingly here at the deadline, another tough pill to swallow.
Absolutely. Not to mention, there's a thing that in my fraternity, when we bring in new members, we say, is there some longevity with this line? Meaning, are there younger guys? That young man has 3 years of eligibility left.
You're right. Yeah.
Like he has plenty of football in front of him. And he's a guy that he's going to get plenty of value in the portal. Same with Ceesay. Those two are going to be extremely valuable, damn near kind of name your price kind of guys, because that there are going to be some schools coming with some really big bags for both of them. A lot like I said about Aiden White before. But again, I'm just going to warn folks, the grass ain't always greener. There's not always, greener pastures and all that out there. And this goes out to all three of them, but Boykin in particular. The portal is, it's one of those things where everybody and their mama is in it, okay? And don't get me wrong, I like Boykin a lot. I think he's a hell of a safety. Yep. Everybody has more recent tape than you. Everybody has more recent tape than you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So just make sure you're going to a situation that, things work out. Because how many times have we seen, how many players have we seen jump in the portal and fade to obscurity? Guys who were set. Think about how different the world is if Josh Harris, and not how different everybody's world is. Not, this changes NC State's trajectory over the past couple of years. Think about how different Josh Harris's world is if he stays at NC State instead of going to Ole Miss and then going to UNC. And now,
Now what?
Yeah. Think about, you would have been the starting defensive tackle. You would have been the guy that, is going to get the lion's share of the snaps. And now what? There have been certain guys who have had good amounts of success, but by and large, we're seeing guys hop in the portal and then have to hop in the portal again shortly after and all that good stuff. So, it's a lot like they said in Alice in Wonderland, and how it begins with beware the Jabberwocky and the Bandersnatch and all that. Because you're leaving a situation for whatever reason, and, be it more money, be it you don't think that there's a championship on the table, be it whatever. You're leaving this situation, and you think you're going to a better one, but a lot like Shane Beamer said about one of his former players, the guy said that he was leaving us because we didn't have a quarterback, and the school that he was going to did, and they were in a position to win a championship. Now, it's widely speculated that player was Juice Wells, and you see what happened. You see how many times guys leave for, well, this is what this looks like, and this is what this projects to be. And, projections in reality, just ask the SEC about this playoff season. The projections in reality ain't always the same thing.
The depth of the NC State secondary certainly takes a hit here. I think there's still a lot of value in the depth that you're keeping. You look at guys like Jackson Vick. He might have just leveled up into a starting spot in 2025. You never know. But the grass certainly isn't always greener, and you never know. Perhaps all three of these guys aren't leaving, because Aiden White did the very same thing right before the deadline last year before announcing that he will return. Whatever it is, these three guys entering the portal right now, it stings a lot. But to finalize my point here, when you lose your defensive coordinator and you have to replace the defensive coordinator and you have an extremely disappointing season, this is what happens, especially in the new world of NIL and the transfer portal. This is not anything new here. I mean, this is almost to be expected. I can't remember if I said it on here or if I said it in some of our YouTube comments. For a while there, I was kind of astounded at how many guys were jumping at the opportunity to come back based on what a train wreck it was this year. So nonetheless, Brandon Ceesay, Devon Boykin, and Tamarcus Cooley have elected to enter their names, or at least plan to enter their names in the transfer portal. Definitely a big hit to the Wolfpack secondary. On the other hand of things, coming up next, we're going to discuss a little bit of smoke around a local wide receiver. What does this mean? This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Thursday sponsor is FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are nearly here, but it's not too late to get in on the action on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many different ways for you to pick up a W, and I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 back in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Middle portion of our Thursday show. Now discussing where you hope the portal may giveth, I want to talk about a little bit of the smoke surrounding wide receiver Nathan Leacock. Now, if you've heard that name before, he's a local kid from Raleigh. He attended Millbrook High School before attending the University of Tennessee this past season. He was a volunteer. Recently entered the transfer portal after the regular season, and we didn't talk about it on here, but a couple weeks ago, he was reportedly at one of the bowl practices that NC State held in Raleigh. Being that he is from Raleigh, obviously has plenty of friends on the team like Noah Rogers or Lex Thomas and probably various other ones. But to attend a practice is one thing while you're in the portal. Another thing is to post a video working out with Lex Thomas and Noah Rogers inside of Close King indoor practice facility for NC State. I believe it was on Tuesday. If I am NC State, I am making every effort, within reason, to bring Nathan Leacock to NC State. NC State is not in a position to turn away players because you think you have enough at one position, in my opinion. If this is a kid that wants to come home and play with his friends and play for NC State, what on earth could stop you from making that happen? He was one of the top players in the state in the 2023 class. I believe he was number 3 overall. This is a 4-star wide receiver, big body, and would probably very likely become one of the top players on this entire team if he were to join it. So my question is this: how much smoke before there becomes fire? Is it only smoke? Are there sparks? Do we need to light a match and make something happen? What is going on here with Nathan Leacock?
Now, Grayson, you and I know as well as anybody, you said the phrase a little backwards there. How much smoke is there before there's fire? Now, maybe I'm crazy. I ain't seen too much smoke in my life without some fire, without some chemical reaction to cause that type of smoke up in the air. So when I look at this Leacock situation, I say, hey, this is very much so a situation where we saw the portal take it away. This may be time for the portal to give it a little. Because, you know, when we talked about are we set with the wide receiver rotation and all that, Leacock has, 3 years of eligibility left?
I think it might have 4. I think he redshirted this year.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm never looking and kind of hedging against that and saying, hey, this guy has too much time left, and I'm not sure if I want him. Because, again, some of the guys that we have that are absolute studs, absolute ballers, they're going to be gone after this year, So there's absolutely a space for Leacock. And at the end of the day, you talk about him working out with guys that he knows and all that. It's one of those things that, to me, and I'm saying this because this is how y'all know I'm not like, I don't wear my NC State red glasses all the time here. This feels like one of those things that kind of shouldn't be allowed to an extent. Like, I get it. You can't not make guys like not work out with like, oh, this is my old teammate. And even though we're at different colleges or whatever, but it feels like one of those things like, are you using another team's facilities, brother?
All right.
Like, what's happening here?
I'm very glad you made this point because I was going to make this point and I was a little bit worried I'd come across as kind of a hard ass for this. If I am NC State and I do know that he is at our practice, he's in the portal, he's a local kid friends with several players on our team, I don't want him in our indoor facility unless there is serious interest. And maybe that is a step too far because, yes, he's allowed to work out with his friends, whatever team that they do play with. But let me pose this hypothetical for you. Carolina offered Leacock out of high school. If Bill Belichick offers Nathan Leacock and he accepts that offer, how is that going to make you feel as a State fan knowing that he's posting workout videos in our facility only to go across the street and put on the Dirty Foot Club blue? That wouldn't feel very good in my personal opinion. So if I'm NC State, I'm not letting that happen unless there's a possibility that he's going to come here and put on the red and white. So, I mean, you have that going on, but I also just want to roll this back to the discussion about the wide receiver room as a whole here. It does feel loaded from a perspective of you have, 6 or 7 wide receivers all signed to come back. Teams like Alabama or Ohio State or Oregon, fill in the blank, blue blood here. Are they ever turning away a player that makes them better in any position? No, not now, not ever, never will be that way. NC State, I don't care who you have in your wide receiver room. If Nathan Leacock has interest in coming to State, you make that happen, unless it's going to break your bank. But again, I don't know how that could be the case when he didn't play this year. He has 1 collegiate college football catch. I basically said college twice. He has 1 catch, and he's redshirting this year, 4 years of eligibility. How much NIL could he possibly be demanding? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But regardless, if I am NC State, I have to make that happen. You cannot allow him to basically play in your face like this and then take a chance on him going down the street and putting on that god-awful blue. Oh, man, I would lose my mind if that ends up happening.
Yeah, and again, this isn't about Leacock in particular. This isn't about, working out with your old teammates. It's not about that. The thing that, I'm like, it's a little suspicious is just the using of the team facilities. But again, we hope to land him. Yeah. And Grace and I want to make that very clear. We'd love to get Nathan Leacock. We'd love for him to do great things here. It'd be a great time. But again, just for transparency's sake and just for us saying this, so there's not a situation in the future where people are like, oh, look, you're up in arms when you're up in arms now that it's your guy working out with his old teammates from place X, Y, and Z in their facility. But when it was you were so cool with it. We are, in fact, not. We are, in fact. Yeah. So if anybody's questioning this, January 3rd, 2025, do the knowledge on Locked On Wolfpack.
Yeah, the best teams, they take every opportunity they can to make their team a better team. Nathan Leacock, although he hasn't really shown anything at the college level, everything in his past, from his high school days to how he grades as a prospect, that would make your team a better team. I got to make that happen, especially with the change in offensive coordinator, and you're more than certainly trying to have a much better year offensively next year than this year. This seems like a fantastic opportunity to try and do something like that. So I don't know. We're going to have to keep our ear to the ground. We'll keep our eyes on social media, but I wouldn't exactly say it's nothing. I don't think he'd be this close to the program repeatedly in the last couple of weeks if it were nothing. So whether there's mutual interest or one-sided interest, whatever it may be, if I am NC State football, bring this young man back home to Raleigh. Coming up next, we're going to round out our show with a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of something. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second Thursday sponsor is Gametime. Me personally, I love going to live events. I'm a live event guy. Whether it's sports, music, comedy, or theater, one of my favorite memories was attending the ACC Championship last year, and I couldn't do that without the help of Gametime. Gametime has now made it easier than ever before to get tickets to your favorite live events with Gametime Picks. This is a new feature that filters out all of the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, and you won't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The curation of Gametime Picks helps you save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it. Toggling the all-in pricing feature on the app will show your total upfront, so you receive zero surprises at checkout. And as always, you get that panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, and again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? You already know. It's game time. Last couple minutes of our Thursday show. Now time for a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of something. 3 topics will tell you exactly where we stand on them. I guess this first one kind of puts a bow on everything we've already discussed. So far in the transfer portal, NC State has picked up 3 offensive linemen, a tight end, and a linebacker. Now that 3 of your pieces in the second have entered the portal, what do you make so far of the portal haul? Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
You know, I look at this and I say to myself, the portal is always going to be a whole lot of something, regardless of what you get or what you lose. Activity in the portal is always a whole lot of something. And the complete and utter reshuffling that we're seeing, despite the fact we have gotten good gets in the portal, the fact that we are looking at a completely reshuffled secondary is a whole lot of something. You know, that there's no way around that. You're lying to yourself if you say it's not. And trust me, these guys got me constantly checking my phone as we approach this deadline, making sure nobody else hops in. So it's a whole lot of something.
It's definitely a whole lot of something. And whether the staff was privy to any of this information coming down the pipeline on Thursday or not, the secondary obviously just became pretty high up on the list on a position that needs to be addressed out of the portal. And so I think the staff did do a very good job of hitting on offensive linemen right out of the gate. More than likely was the number one thing to do. Went ahead and did it, so that was a great start. Also picked up a tight end, hopefully to be used in blocking purposes behind Justin Jolie as your main pass catcher there. Recently picked up a linebacker. I would like us to pick up probably another one, maybe 2 of those. I'm a little bit perplexed, and I know these things take time, don't get me wrong, that we haven't picked up a defensive lineman yet, because now I think that you have addressed the offensive line. Outside of linebacker and probably now secondary, the defensive line needs some major love out of the portal.
Yeah.
It's great to bring Brandon Cleveland back and Travali Price back and Isaiah Shirley back, but you need a dog, or probably more than one dog, hopefully 2 dogs that can slot in and play immediately on the defensive line. So I'm looking for NC State to really attack the defensive line here coming up, because I believe that should be priority number 1. The second and third one of these will be basketball related. NC State men's basketball blew a 14-point lead at UVA on Tuesday afternoon, up 10 at half, and lost the second half by 13. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
A whole lot of something, because this just goes to show the things that Grayson and I have talked about again and again and again and again. Grayson, what has always been our biggest gripe about this NC State men's basketball team?
What, free throw shooting?
And do you know what percentage we shot from the free throw line in this game?
I do not, but I'd venture to guess it was sub 70.
73. Like, you know, again, you cannot be undersized and struggle there. You cannot be shooting 70% from the free throw line and 34% from deep and think that that's going to be enough. You just can't. You just cannot. You can't run this offense where it's like, oh, we're just going to kind of hold on to the ball until it's all over and think that that's enough. You can't. You can't do it. You're setting yourself up for failure every single time. So a loss coming with things that we saw things that we've been seeing all year against lesser competition. And this is why Grayson and I say, do not allow things against lesser competition that you wouldn't want in general, because if that is the case, it will rear its head going forward. And the last thing, a blast from the past came back, which is new for this team, which was not the case earlier this season for this team. The inability to get stops without creating turnovers. This year, this team seemed to be fairly good at getting stops without creating those turnovers. But in this game, it was like, not only were we unable to turn over Virginia, we also weren't able to stop them at a high clip.
This game was crazy because the first half was probably one of the better halves I've seen us play all season. And the second half was probably one of the worst halves I've seen us play all season. And this game, something that NC State basketball has done really well so far this year, is defend at a relatively high clip, force a lot of turnovers, and then capitalize on the other end. In this game, the second half, I don't know what we were trying to do defensively. Losing their top three-point shooter in McNeely time after time after time again. I know he only hit 4 out of 9, but it felt like we just gave him countless opportunities that were wide, the blank open for him to knock down. Virginia hitting 9 threes, which is 45%. Of all teams, of course, Virginia is going to be the one that shoots 45% from deep. I mean, second half was just a complete defensive blunder. Losing guys that you can't lose, not being able to defend in the paint. It really hurt not having Ben Middlebrooks in this game, obviously, due to illness. But it goes to show you what the kind of importance he does have in holding down the paint. You take him out of there, you got to rely so heavily on Brandon Huntley-Hatfield. Respectfully, he's not doing it for me. He's not playing tough enough. He's not getting enough rebounds. He's not scoring the bunnies at the rim. It's been very lackluster, and it all kind of rolled into one massive disappointment there in the second half of Virginia. Something else that really stings about this, Virginia's not that good of a team. I don't know if they're going to make the dance. I think they're going to really struggle in the remainder of ACC play. Not only is their roster nothing to sneeze at, obviously Tony Bennett stepped down before the season, so they're kind of trying to find their level there. This is a really bad loss for NC State. It would have been a quad 2 win. You're only going to get so many more opportunities on the road, especially within ACC play. Sincerely fumbled this away in the worst way imaginable. Whole lot of something. Yeah. The last one here, I guess we kind of already talked about it, but Virginia overall in this game shot 54%. UVA shot 54%. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. Ben Middlebrooks was missed. His ability to protect the rim was missed. You have to get stops when you are not turning teams over. You have to do it. Yes, getting turnovers is great. It's part of Keats' thing. That's part of the whole deal. Absolutely. But when that's not happening, when the team is slowing it down and being very careful with the ball, then what? What are you doing then? Because, in this one, it's just too much dribble penetration allowed. Nobody meeting guys at the rim. And like you said, we're just not getting enough from BHH right now. We're not getting enough. There's nothing really coming on the inside for teams in terms of, hey, we've got to stop folks. We've got to make things difficult on the inside. It's just not happening. So, whole lot of something.
One of the crazier stats that come out of this game is NC State actually won the rebounding battle by 12. You out-rebounded Virginia by 12 and still found a way to lose. That's how many wide open opportunities you gave them in the second half that they knocked down time after time after time again. Couple that with the fact that NC State offensively, and this was a big concern heading into the season, there's not really a number one bucket getter on this team. You have a lot of guys that can contribute at times, but you don't have a DJ Horn on this team. Yeah. You don't have a Trevor Lacey on this team or a Cat Barber on this team. And this team is going to suffer the rest of the season until, that's not really something that can be solved, but multiple guys are going to have to really step up and play above punching weight if this team's going to continue to make any semblance of some noise in ACC play. So that was certainly a disappointing loss. I believe we were on the road on Saturday out at Wake Forest, another big time game. They're all big in ACC play, but NC State, if they want to have a shot at doing anything the rest of the season, you got to find a way to go on the road and get it done. That'll do it for us here on Thursday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us your thoughts on Brandon Ceesay, Devon Boykin, and Tamarcus Cooley entering the portal right here at the deadline, right before midnight on Thursday evening. Tell us what you think about wide receiver Nathan Leacock being around the program, kind of some smoke in the air. Hopefully there's some fire here. Let us know your thoughts there. Anything else on your mind, drop that in the comment box as well. Mash that subscribe button if you have not already. Until next time, go Pack.
Go Pack.